What's up, and welcome to The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers to highlight their philosophies, strategies, and personalities. Today, I've got Miss Sandler. What's up, Shamiah?
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here. We were connected in a kind of interesting way, but I'm glad these things happen. So first, starting off, I want to read a quote from an Instagram page called Caldwell's Classroom.
Okay.
And it says, according to statistics, the average United States public school teacher is a 42-year-old white female with 14 years of experience. She makes $55,100 base salary and works 53 hours per week. So, Shamiah, first starting off, you are not that average teacher.
I am not, but my experience has been that is quite accurate.
Yeah, it's true. But also following you not being what that quote says, you're also a Black woman French teacher, right? So can you get into that? Why are you a French teacher? How did you become a French teacher?
This is a question that I get asked very frequently, and I don't have a great answer. So growing up, I'm the youngest of four kids. And so all of my siblings went into band when they got into school. And so I said, I'm doing orchestra. And then all of my siblings took Spanish. And so I said, well, I'm taking French. So it kind of happened more out of the fact that I was a rebel without a cause than anything else. And so then I got into French and I really liked it. I found I was pretty good at it. And then in college, I spent a semester in France, one of the best experiences of my life. And I die hard recommend to study abroad to anybody because college is definitely the cheapest time you will ever live in another country. Like it does not get cheaper than that, especially if you're living in Georgia where we have the Hope Scholarship that will pay for your time in another country. So if you get any kind of financial aid that you get will pay for you to live in another, like it's just the best. So yeah, I spent a semester in France, was like, I really love this. I really want to have a way that this is in my life every single day. And teaching was something that I resisted for a very long time. But when I looked at options, it just kind of always came back to, I would rather be in a classroom. So here we are.
Yeah, I've seen that happens to a lot of teachers. Like somehow education just comes to them or it finds them, right?
Yeah.
But I guess from my experience growing up, and I guess what I think about when I think of a French teacher, I don't think of anyone who looks like you. So like, what inspired you to become a French teacher? Like,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I did not have the experience of having a Black French teacher until I got to college.
I don't think most people do.
No. Well, it's interesting that you brought up that quote because when I was in I think my third year of teaching, I saw something, I think on Facebook that was like, what grade were you in when you had your first Black male teacher? And I thought, and I was like, and for me, it was high school, my senior year of high school. And for a lot of people, because I reposted on Facebook, a lot of them were like either never or it wasn't until college that people even had that. And so for me, when I went to college, I had two Black male teachers, but neither of them were American. Like one of them was from Burkina Faso, one was from Morocco. And so not even like American Black male teachers. I've had one in my lifetime.
Wow.
Of getting through a master's degree, one Black male teacher.
What about Black teachers in general? So I think my first Black teacher was chemistry in high school. So that's what, junior year, sophomore year?
Sophomore. Well, in Georgia, sophomore year.
Okay, yeah. In California, it was junior or sophomore year. And then my first Black male teacher wasn't until Morehouse. So that was,
yeah.
What about you, your first Black teacher in general?
So first Black teacher, I want to say was 8th grade science.
8th grade, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember a Black teacher before then, 8th grade science. And then from there, senior year of high school, yeah, no.
Yeah, senior year. So it's like, you need something like that during those formative years, right? Like the younger, the better, at least what I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to one of my colleagues, and he was saying how he never had a single Black male teacher. And I have a nephew, and to me, you hear a lot of times like representation matters, representation matters. People need to see themselves in all aspects, in social media and the media and professions. And to me, like, I thought like, yeah, that sounds good, but like, does it really matter that much? And then my nephew was playing, this is random, but he was playing Mario Kart, and he's like going through the characters, and and some of them you can like change them. And so he changed one, and he goes, I want to play with that one because he's brown like me. And I was like,
there it is, living proof.
Okay. A 6-year-old said that to me. And he was like, that's what I want because he looks like me.
Wow.
I was like, okay, representation does matter. Yes. Like to me, I didn't think it mattered, but I mean, I knew it mattered, but I didn't think.
It's weird when you have to like put it like in a concrete example, but yeah.
Right.
Mario Kart is a very interesting place to see that for the first time. But now maybe talking a little more about that. So you're at an IB school right now, right? Teaching IB French.
Yes.
So again, I grew up in California. We have 8 AP classes. I've taught at a school. Actually, I haven't taught at a school in Georgia that had IB, but like what exactly is an IB school or an IB class?
So the IB program is the International Baccalaureate. And so what this program strives to do is give kids an international perspective and show them how everything is connected. So that's looking at how, the things that you learn in one content area connects to things in other content area, how things are not just standalone, but like everything is connected. Teaching them how to look through the lenses of other cultures, because in the global society that we live in, you have to be able to move through and appreciate and respect cultural differences and have that sort of cultural competency to interact with people of different cultures in a respectful manner. And so IB just is a lot about critical thinking skills and an open-mindedness and respect for other.
Okay, and when you get to that other, right? So I've taught at a STEM school teaching physics, and over there, I was the king of the world, right? Physics at a STEM school, of course, right? I've also taught physics at a classical academy where I was not the king of the world at all, right? So being a French class in the IB school, I can imagine like, do you ever feel queen of the world, not queen of the world? Like where do you fit in that?
So because it's an IB school, foreign language is considered a core class. So they have 5 core classes, right? Your typical math, science, social studies, language arts, and then foreign language is a core class as well. So every student has to take foreign language. So in that sense, I do feel queen of the world, right? Because there's not so much of that, well, why am I even here? And like I'm never going to use this. There's not as much of that mentality. I taught at a different school previously that was not an IB school. And so foreign language was an elective. And so students had to like specifically choose to take the language. So in that sense, it kind of goes back and forth. So one, all the kids understand they have to take a foreign language. They understand that it's, that's the bare minimum that everybody takes foreign language. But on the other hand, some kids kind of just got like stuck into French because they had to pick a language. And so before, where people actively chose it, there was more like a tad bit more of like excitement for it, because like, oh, I want to be in French. Whereas now I have, and I mean, not that the kids like totally hate it, but some kids genuinely are like, I didn't want to take this class. And I'm like, I get that. That's fair. Like,
right. So even at when I was in high school, right, the AP classes, you take AP physics because, I want to do something with physics when I grow up, right? When I was taking Spanish, I just took Spanish because it was the thing to take. Growing up in Chino, 30 miles from LA and all that stuff, like it's just what you take. And all my friends spoke Spanish too. So at your school, who is taking IB French? Like, are there neighbors? Or I don't know your area you live. Are there people who speak French like out in the streets?
So out in the street. So Georgia does have like a decent French population, but the specific area that I'm in is actually very largely Hispanic. And so because I'm in the middle school, we don't have a Spanish for native speakers class. So a lot of the heritage speakers or native speakers take French because Spanish one would be very boring. You know, so it's honestly a lot of Hispanic students, which is fun because I work on my Spanish while I teach them French.
Okay.
And so there's a very fun exchange going on where they laugh at me because I try to pronounce Spanish words like French words. And I'm like, no, that's not at all how you say that. And, I'm working on it. So there's not a huge population. We do have a decent amount of like Haitian students. So students who also have like French Creole, a decent amount of Canadian students too. So, you know, students who speak Quebecois, like the French Canadian, but it's mostly, the population here is mostly like Spanish speaking if they don't speak English as their first language. So.
Okay. And I guess taking French as opposed to Spanish is a way for them to be challenged in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now maybe talking about specifically Miss Sadler, is your class hard?
So,
before you get into it,
I think no.
Before you get into it, my sister always asks me that, like when I'm teaching physics, like, is your class hard? Like, do you have extra credit? Why are you giving homework? I'm like, you got to do certain things. But like, is your class hard?
So I would say no. So the way that I teach is based on the research of a man named Dr. Stephen Krashen. And so he did lots and lots of research into second language acquisition. So how does the brain acquire another language? And basically what his research found is that, which is partially like common sense, right? Repetition, right? So we know that anything in life, the more we see it or hear it over and over again, it's going to stick in our brains. And then like compelling, so interesting to people, right? We all know that if something is interesting, you want to listen to it. And then comprehensible. So you see a lot of like traditional style teachers, what I'll call them for lack of a better term, who say, I'm only speaking in the target language, so French or Spanish or German or whatever language that may be. I'm not going to speak in any English, and they'll just eventually get it, right? So Dr. Stephen Krashen found that that does not work. They have to understand the messages in order to then acquire the language. So while we still strive to speak mostly in the target language, so for me, that's French, with this pedagogy, it's using English when necessary so that they understand what you're saying so that you can keep going in the language. Because if somebody's just saying wah, 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 wah at you, you're not learning anything at all.
That's so interesting. Sorry, I cut you off. Sorry. But I was thinking that, so I teach a couple students in this math program, and we try to get the math verbiage and bring that to like a people talk and like what this actually means. Is that kind of like what you're doing with that? Like, or it's more like interconnecting the English to French?
So I would just like, if we're going, so like on yesterday, we started some new vocabulary. So I wrote the vocabulary down in French in like red marker. And then underneath it, I wrote it in black and like the English in black right underneath it. So it's on the board. And then we made up a story together as a class using the vocabulary. So I came up with the script. And I like a basic script of like, okay, there's a person, they're upset. Then I ask the kids, why are they upset? And they come up with some reason in French. And then we're like, okay, they're upset because of this. And I'm like drawing on the board. And then when I come to one of those words, like point to it. So I don't say in English, but they can see it in English on the board. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then we're making up a story. So one class made up a story about Beyonce, who was looking for a husband, because one of the words was looking for. So she's looking for a husband. So where does she look for her husband? They said she looks at Target. Okay, so she goes to Target. Who does she see at Target? They said, I think Timothy Chalamet. I said, okay, does she like him? They said, no. I said, all right. So she throws something at him. What does she throw? A piano. All right. The other word was, ouch, that hurts. I said, so he screams, ouch, that hurts. And then she leaves because she's still looking for a husband. So where does she look for a husband now? So I'm repeating like looks for over and over and over
In
again.
English.
Right. No, I'm doing all this in French.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So I'm saying like looks for. Where does she look for a husband now? They said, I don't remember where they said. And I said, well, who's there? The Rock. Does she like The Rock? No, she's afraid of him. So she runs away, but she trips and falls and she hurts herself and she screams, ouch, that hurts. And so to them, we're just making up this like weird story and they're like cracking up laughing. And I'm drawing on the board and I draw very awful. Like I have no artistic skills whatsoever. The Rock looked like a bean.
And so you were telling me that this is a controversial way of teaching. That's not.
So a lot of people think that by writing it in English on the board, as well as having the French,
That part.
that the kids are just looking at the English and they're not looking at the French.
Interesting.
And so, but in my experience and what research supports as well, is that because you're also like, you're telling the story in French, you're talking in French, the only people who are looking at the English are the ones who need it. And so by doing that, you're supporting those kids who still need a little bit extra support. But the kids who already know it now, they're not paying attention to that English. They're not looking at it. They're just listening.
So in doing that, you're at an IB school where your middle school students are getting ready for this IB test once they get to high school, right?
Yes.
You would think that you'd get some type of pushback from that, in that, okay, these students need to get ready for the test. They need to do this traditional tried and true method of learning French, right? Do you get any type of pushback, or in terms of, this is your 5th year teaching, right? You're a young teacher. Is your credibility ever questioned for things like that?
No, because I get good results, honestly.
So that's after what, 5 years, right?
No, well, I mean, like, yes and no, but like, so like each year, right? The kids come in, and so my experience so far has been students coming to me from mostly having traditional students in the past. So before I was in a high school, and so I taught students who had a traditional teacher the year before and then came to me. Or I was teaching the first level, so the kids had nothing and came to me. And so the kids who had the traditional teacher would come in, and they're nervous at first because I speak in a lot of French, and they're like, oh my gosh, like she's talking so much French. But then like the end of like the first day, they're like, oh, I learned stuff today. And because the stories are random and funny and they had a part in creating it, so they've got that ownership over it, they go home and they're like, guess what we did today in French class? And they're like, I can tell you all about this story in French. And so as far as the students are concerned and the parents are concerned, there's really not much pushback, because one, they're enjoying themselves, and two, they feel like they're learning and they can like show that they are actively learning things. We do what we call timed writes. So I'll have them write for 10 minutes. And if it's either like, so in that case, we came up with the story as a class. So I'll say, all right, 10 minutes, rewrite the story as best you can in French. So they'll write it out for 10 minutes, and then they count up how many words they wrote. And then we kind of use those as benchmarks, so that the first time you do it, maybe you only wrote 60 words. The next time you did it, you could write 100 words. The next time you do it. So they'll see when they first started, they could only push out 20 words. And now I've got kids writing 250 words in 10 minutes. So they feel their progress. They can tell, they feel more confident in speaking and writing. We read books.
Yeah, and it sounds like the way you do it gives more immediate results too, right? Where, no, you don't think so?
I mean, immediate is hard to say.
Or immediate as in you can see them learning after day 1 or day 2. Is that what?
For a lot of kids, yes. Yes.
Yeah, because my experience in my Spanish class, it was a lot of factors. I was in new school, scared and shy and all this stuff. But I was completely quiet for like the first time in my life in that Spanish class, because it was all Spanish, right? Where I thought I was absorbing, but I really didn't get anything from it. So in your method of doing this and getting the students to like tell stories and have ownership. I see that as maybe having more visible effects, I guess. Maybe I'm trying to say that.
Yeah, so one of the things also with like Dr. Krashen's research is we talk about like, so we have what's called input and output, right? So input is all the language that they read or listen to, and then output would then be either speaking or writing. And so input precedes output by a long mile. And then of course, everybody's brain works differently. So some people, you know, less input equals output for them. Some people need way more input before they're ready to output. But I can definitely see progress in that. At the beginning of class, if I ask you, what does this word mean? And you can't tell me what it means at all. But by the end of class, you could tell me what it means in English. Yes. Whether or not you can use it in French and use it correctly in context, not so much after one class period, you know? But
Okay.
now you have that like recognition, you have that working memory of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, that you got to get that working memory and like have
Right.
the ownership and all. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is great, Miss Sadler. So with all this, why are you teaching? I mean, it sounds like you have like a lot of experience in French. You studied abroad. Why are you still a teacher?
Oof. I ask myself that on some days.
No, that's the wrong answer.
No, but when it comes down to it, I genuinely enjoy being with students. I genuinely enjoy watching the growth that takes place. There's so much creativity in these kids. Like that story I was telling you about, like it was hilarious and we were cracking up the entire period. Like we have fun, a lot of fun on the good days. You know, some days are not so great, but like we genuinely have a lot of fun. I love watching the progress. At the school that I was at before, because it was high school, I would teach kids like maybe like 2 years in a row. And there's just something beautiful about teaching kids 2 years in a row, because just like that relationship that you develop, and especially in a foreign language, you have to like to communicate well, right, with them, you have to know what they know so that you can, you know, communicate well with them. So those kids that I taught for 2 years, like I know exactly what vocabulary, you know, so we can go the entire class period, both of us having only conversations in French, and it'd be great. There was a class that was like my dream class. It was the most beautiful thing that ever happened. It was a small class, it was only 18 students. I had all of them for 2 years. And we sometimes would barely get to what I had planned because we were talking in French about other random things.
Oh.
And to me, there's nothing better than like showing them, like, yeah, you can totally learn another language. There's millions of people across the globe who speak French, and you can interact with them and you can express yourself. And it's just, I love it. It's a beautiful thing. We wrote poems, and one kid wrote the like most dramatic poem ever, and I was not expecting it. I was like, what is this? This is great.
Wow. It's like what, a novella in Spanish? What's it called in French? They have like drama TV shows.
Oh, there's not really like a good equivalent like telenovelas. Like they don't have that. No.
Okay. Well, anyway, Shamiah, thank you for sharing all of this, like your insight, your views on education, and the reason why you're doing it just for the love of the game. It's great. It's great. And it's one of the reasons why I think you're one of the greatest teachers of all time.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you to everyone else for watching The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I interview teachers of color to highlight their philosophies, strategies, and personalities.